You are not here to be safe. You are here to be awakened. Somewhere beneath the ache in your bones, beneath the sigh you let slip when no one is looking, is a truth too wild for comfort and too sacred to ignore. That you were never meant to drift through life. You were meant to stand, to choose, to carry light where there is none. But we forget, don't we? We wrap ourselves in ease, the right thermostat, the right chair, the right distractions, until we can no longer hear the deep voice calling us out of sleep. The soul's voice, the one that doesn't shout but burns, and still we wonder why we feel numb, because comfort, the kind this world offers, is a soft coffin. It doesn't break you. It slowly folds around you until you forget what hunger felt like, what courage tasted like. But look closer. Every man who ever lived deeply, from Abraham to Augustine, from Paul to Pascal, walked not a path of ease, but of holy fire. Not comfort, but crucible. Not applause, but alignment with something eternal. Even Christ did not choose safety. He chose a road no one wanted, through betrayal, through thorns, through silence, for something greater than relief. So, why do we believe ease is the evidence of blessing? We weren't made for comfort. We were made for courage. And courage is not loud. It is not arrogant. It does not arrive with drum rolls or declarations. No, courage is quiet, unseen. It's the decision to stay when everything in you wants to run. It's the prayer whispered when heaven feels like stone. It's the moment you say no, not because it's easy, but because it is good, because it is right. But we live in a world that tells you otherwise. It says, protect yourself. Don't risk pain. Don't let anyone think you're weak. And so we polish our images, filter our grief, and bury our doubts. We hide behind schedules and opinions and noise, but the soul doesn't heal by hiding. It heals by truth. And truth often feels like fire. Yes, truth scorches. It strips away the lies you didn't know you were breathing. It reveals the places in you still bowing to fear. It shows you where you've mistaken survival for life. And that is the beginning of everything, because in the furnace of discomfort, something divine begins to happen. The illusions melt, the masks slip, the soul, naked and trembling, remembers who it is. Do you remember? Do you remember the boy who used to wonder at stars? The girl who believed in miracles? The child who didn't need a reason to dance barefoot? In the rain, that was you, before the world taught you to be afraid, before pain taught you to numb, before success taught you to perform. But here's the sacred truth. That child has not died. They are waiting for you beneath the rubble of false security, calling you back to courage. Not reckless courage, not bravado, but holy courage, the kind that bends but does not break, the kind that stands when it's not popular, the kind that forgives when the wound is still bleeding, the kind that walks on water even when the wind screams no. And this courage, it's not found in comfort. It's forged in desert places, in the silence of sleepless nights, in the ache of unanswered prayers, in the long obedience in the same direction. And when the world sees it, this quiet, trembling courage, it won't always understand. It may call it weakness, foolishness, even madness, but heaven knows that the bravest thing you'll ever do is not conquer a city, or climb a mountain, or win applause. The bravest thing you'll ever do is choose love over bitterness, faith over cynicism, surrender over control. And that choice, repeated quietly, daily, painfully, is what changes the world. But first, it must change you. That's why life won't always be easy, because ease is not what shapes the soul. Cracks are, and you are allowed to be cracked. You are allowed to not have it together. You are allowed to say, I'm scared, but I'll still stand. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to be ruled by it. And when the winds howl and the ground trembles, when the voices say, turn back, stay small, play safe, Let your soul answer with silence, the kind of silence that knows the battle has already been won. You just need to keep walking, and when you fall, not if, but when, fall forward. Fall toward the light. Fall with your eyes fixed on the one who sees the whole path, even when you see only the next step, because that is where courage lives, not in certainty, but in faith. Faith that whispers, even this will be used for glory. Faith that says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Faith that turns a cracked heart into a burning lamp, so don't chase comfort. Chase the fire that refines, chase the pain that purifies, chase the truth that pierces, because you were not made to be numb. You were made to burn, with light, with love, with the holy ache of being fully alive, and that takes courage. There will come a day when the path beneath your feet vanishes, when what you thought was solid crumbles, when the voice you prayed to is silent and the people you counted on disappear. And in that moment, you will face a choice. Not a loud, dramatic choice. No, it will be quiet, so quiet it might go unnoticed by the world, but not by eternity, because that is the moment that decides who you are becoming. Will you turn inward, fold in on yourself, close your fists and curse the sky? Or will you open your trembling hands and whisper, even here, I will trust. This is the first climax of the soul, the moment of disillusionment, when what you believed would hold you doesn't, when comfort fails you, when the promises of the world dissolve into dust, and it hurts more than you thought it would, because somewhere along the way you were taught that if you just did everything right, you'd be protected. That suffering meant punishment. That loss was proof something had gone wrong, but what if it isn't? What if the shaking is not a punishment, but a mercy? What if the breaking is not the end, but the beginning? God is not in the business of decorating cages. He's in the business of breaking them open, and comfort, for all its allure, is the most gilded cage of them all. But when the walls collapse, when the floor vanishes, something strange happens. You realize you're still standing, or maybe kneeling, or maybe all you can do is breathe. But you are here, and that too is holy, because sometimes courage looks like survival. Sometimes it looks like not giving up when everything inside you has already surrendered. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed, or saying no, or saying yes, even though your voice shakes. And sometimes it just looks like waiting. Oh, how we despise waiting. But the soul does not grow in fast forward. It grows in stillness, in mystery, in the sacred slowness of unseen roots. You may not feel brave, but courage has never been a feeling. It is a decision made over and over again to show up in the dark, and in that dark something deeper than you begins to speak. Not from the outside, but from within. The voice is not loud, it does not flatter, it does not bargain, it simply says, I am still here, and so are you. And slowly, something in you begins to rise. Not the polished self, not the self that knows how to pretend, but the true self, raw, weathered, and wondrous. The one made in the image of fire. This is when courage turns sacred, because now you're no longer performing it, you're embodying it. You've let go of needing to look strong. You've let go of needing to be understood. You've even let go of needing to win. You just want to be real, and in that sacred ache for authenticity, for truth at all costs, the world begins to shift, not out there, but in you. You begin to see with new eyes, not the eyes trained by fear, not the eyes addicted to approval, but eyes washed by tears and lit by grace. You see that the people you envied are just as afraid as you. You see that the ones who seem the most powerful often feel the most powerless. You see that the ones who hurt you were hurting too, and suddenly you are free. Not because your life is easier, but because your soul is lighter. You stop clinging to what you can't control. You stop bargaining for a life without pain. You stop running from the wilderness and begin walking into it, because you realize now the wilderness is not punishment. It is invitation. Invitation to come and meet the God who does not dwell in palaces, but in deserts. The God who does not shout over your pain, but enters it. The God who does not rescue you from the fire, but walks with you through it. And when you know this, when you've tasted this, you will never go back to comfort again. You will still enjoy blessings. Yes, but they will not define you. You will still know loss, yes, but it will not destroy you, because you have become someone different. Not a stronger version of your old self, but someone altogether new, reborn in surrender, remade in fire, resurrected through grace. You may not have words for it, but others will see it. They will feel it in your presence. The stillness, the depth, the mercy. They won't know what changed, but heaven will. Heaven knows the cost of a courageous soul. It is not cheap, it is not quick, it is not pretty, but it is eternal. So when the voices rise again, and they will, telling you to play small, to stay numb, to take the easy road, remember, you were not made for comfort. You were made for something wilder, something deeper, something braver. You were made for courage. And then it happens, not with trumpets or visions or fire from the sky, but with something smaller, softer, quieter than you thought holy things would be. Maybe it's the morning light falling across the floor just right. Maybe it's the sound of a child laughing when you thought the day had no joy left. Maybe it's the sudden, inexplicable peace that settles on your chest when you should be falling apart. It is the second great moment, not of disillusionment, but of revelation. The soul brushing against eternity and realizing, I was never alone. This is the truth we rarely dare say aloud, because it changes everything, that even in your darkest hour, even in the silence that made you doubt, even in the fire, you begged to be spared. You were being held. You thought the silence meant absence. You thought the suffering meant abandonment. You thought the wilderness was wasted. But now something in you knows. The silence was sacred. The suffering was seed. The wilderness was womb. And suddenly you see it. Like light breaking through a stained glass window. Every disappointment that stripped away your illusions. Every unanswered prayer that forced you deeper, every grief that carved out more room for grace. It was not meaningless, it was mercy in disguise, and this knowing, it does something irreversible to the heart. You stop trying to feel close to God and start trusting you are. You stop demanding to see the plan and start walking like you are already part of it. You stop looking for a path without pain and start looking for His presence in the pain. This is the holy contradiction, that the more you lose, the more you find. That the deeper you fall, the higher you rise. That the weaker you become, the more His strength is made perfect in you. And isn't that what we feared all along? Not pain itself, but the idea that pain had no purpose. Not loss itself, but the lie that loss was final. Not suffering itself, but the suspicion that no one saw it but us. But now you know better. Now you know that courage is not something you carry. It's something that carries you. You do not create it. You receive it. Like breath. Like manna. Like grace falling fresh every morning. And so you begin to live differently. Not because your circumstances change, but because your soul has. You speak less, you listen more, you stop chasing the loudest rooms and seek the deepest ones. You don't need to be impressive anymore. You just want to be faithful. You don't need to be understood anymore. You just want to be known by the one who formed you in the dark. You don't need to be fearless anymore. You just need to keep walking, because now you know courage doesn't roar. It whispers, keep going, one more step. And somehow, that's enough. You stop waiting for the pain to pass before you live. You stop waiting for perfect peace before you obey. You stop waiting for applause before you act. You understand now that every breath is borrowed. Every heartbeat is a gift. Every day is one more chance to be brave, and being brave doesn't mean moving mountains. Sometimes it just means standing firm while they move around you. Sometimes it means returning kindness for cruelty, forgiving when you still feel the wound, choosing integrity when no one would know if you didn't. Sometimes it means believing there is still beauty, even after the ashes, that love still wins, even after betrayal, that light still rises, even after 1,000 nights, and this is how the world begins to heal. Not through grand speeches or grandstanding, but through hidden lives lived with quiet faith, through ordinary people who choose courage, when no one is watching, through people like you, because maybe, just maybe, the kingdom of heaven is not coming in thunder. Maybe it's coming in the hush of a soul that says yes, again and again and again. Yes to truth. Yes to love. Yes to the fire that refines instead of destroys. Yes to becoming, even when it hurts. And you realize this is what you were made for. Not ease, not applause, not escape, but for this holy battle, this sacred endurance, this quiet rebellion against despair. You were not made for comfort. You were made to be a beacon in the storm, a burning bush that does not burn out, a soul that says, though the night is long, I will not go numb, I will not turn back, I will not forget who I am, because you have seen too much, felt too deeply, come too far, and what's more, you are no longer alone. You've found others, not the perfect, not the polished, but the real, souls with scars like yours, eyes that still carry wonder, hands that still reach for the light. Together, you walk forward, not because you know the way, but because you know the one who walks with you, and that is enough. One day, someone will ask you how you kept going, how you didn't let the bitterness win, how you kept showing up, heart wide open, in a world that rewards armor and applause, and you will smile. Not because it was easy, but because you finally understood. The goal was never comfort. It was courage, the courage to stay tender in a cruel world, the courage to choose what is right over what is popular, the courage to carry love like a sword, not to harm, but to defend what is sacred. And you will not need to explain yourself, because they will see it. They will see the fire in your eyes, the quiet in your spirit, the peace that didn't come from having answers, but from trusting anyway. You will become the kind of person who changes rooms without speaking, not by dominance, but by presence, because you've walked through the fire and did not come out bitter. You came out true. And in a world starved for truth, that is revolutionary. You see, the world does not need more people who are merely successful. It needs souls who are brave, who are awake, who are willing to bleed for what is beautiful. It needs people who no longer bow to fear, but bend to grace. It needs you, not the mask you wear, not the curated version of you designed for acceptance, but the you who trembles and still says yes, the you who has scars, but still sings. The you who has questions, but still prays. The you who isn't perfect, but is faithful. That is the courage heaven celebrates. Not the performance, but the perseverance. Not the loud victories, but the silent ones. The forgiveness no one sees. The integrity no one applauds. The compassion no one thanks you for. These are the seeds that grow into eternity. And one day, maybe soon, maybe far, you will stand before the one who saw it all, the tears, the trembling, the times you almost gave up, and he will not ask if you were comfortable. He will ask if you were brave, if you followed when it cost you, if you loved when it hurt, if you chose the narrow road, the one lined not, with luxury but with light. And when you say yes, even if your voice shakes, he will say, well done. Not because you never fell, but because you rose every time with love still in your hands. That is what you were made for. Not a sanitized life wrapped in guarantees, not a risk-free journey of polite mediocrity, but a holy pilgrimage through desert and storm and shadow into the eternal. You were made to walk through fire and come out radiant, to walk through sorrow and come out singing, to walk through death and come out alive, because your soul is not made of glass, it is made of glory. It does not need to be protected from pain. It needs to be awakened by purpose. And you, yes you, carry a light no darkness can extinguish. Not because you are unbreakable, but because you are redeemed. So let the world misunderstand you. Let it call you strange. Let it call you soft. Let it say you feel too much or hope too hard. Smile anyway, because you know the truth. That your tenderness is not weakness, it is holy defiance. That your sorrow is not failure, it is proof you still care. That your hope is not naive, it is the substance of things unseen. And this world, for all its noise and ache and confusion, is still in need of hope. And so you walk forward. Even when your knees shake, even when the road disappears, even when the sky is silent, you walk forward, and not because you see the way, but because you trust the one who does. And in your walking, others will rise. Not because you told them to, but because courage is contagious. They will see your scars and find the strength to face their own. They will hear your story and remember their own song. They will watch you burn, not with rage, but with grace, and they will remember the light. And so, let this be your legacy. Not that you lived without pain, but that you lived without fear, that you chose truth over comfort, faith over ease, love over silence, that you, though ordinary in the eyes of men, were extraordinary in the eyes of heaven. And if the world still tries to convince you that the highest goal is happiness, let your soul rise in quiet defiance and whisper back, I was not made for comfort, I was made for courage. So go ahead. Stand in the fire, kneel in the silence, sing in the dark. The angels are not looking for the successful, they are looking for the brave. And maybe, just maybe, God is not asking you to win. He's just asking you to be faithful, to stand, to love, to not turn back. And when your strength is gone, He will carry you, because He never called you to do this alone. He just called you to say yes. And so maybe all this time you were not losing. You were learning how to be free. Maybe you were not being abandoned. You were being invited. Maybe the battle was never against the world, but against the lie that you were too small for the fight. But you are not small. You are chosen. You are called. You are seen. And you were never made for comfort. You were made for courage.